Welcome. Hi.
Hi.
Happy New Year.
Same to
Hello.
you.
Yeah. Hi, LaSalle. Well, first group coaching office hour of the new year. So glad to see both of you. Hopefully, we'll see a couple other faces join, and if not, next time. Because I do know one or two folks might still be traveling or some such thing. Um, And I think I'm going to pull a card for us to get started since it's the first one of the new year. And Carol, since this is your first session, we'll do little brief intros after that. So
Okay.
you guys have seen me use this deck before. It's the Universe Has Your Back. And I am usually pretty drawn to this one for some reason. I don't know why. I just like its little like quick hits of mantras and kind of like positive energy. When I focus on my inner light, I see the world through the lens of love, is what we got for today.
Hmm.
Which I feel like is a nice sentiment for the start of the new year. Coming into January, we're past the solstice, so the light is ever increasing every day. Even though January is still kind of a hard month for me, it is at least getting lighter. And I think I did miss some of the grayness that was happening in Northern California while I was on vacation last week. So I'm pretty happy about that because we have blue skies and sunny, even though it's cold, and it's no rain in the forecast for at least 10 days. So I'm gonna take it. I'll take the light.
I want to know how your cheek is.
Oh, I don't know if you can even see it anymore.
Oh,
It's very It looked worse in the video when it happened, I think, because it did draw blood and there was like a little smudge of blood, but it's like right there.
ah,
A little
oh,
punk.
oh, I thought about ways of eliminating our cat, who I inherited from my daughter, who had to leave her home to, it's a long story. Anyway, so we got this cat. The first thing she did was she just bit the shit out of my hand.
Mhm.
And the doctors were afraid she had gone through the nerve sheath. I mean,
Mhm.
and it was because she got on my lap and I needed her to get off my lap and she wasn't having it. So when we were evacuated from the fire, she ran under the bed. And I said, okay. And I yelled at her, I said, you're gonna die. But well, that's what
She
happened.
she did she survive? No.
No.
Okay.
If she did survive, it would be a miracle
Yeah.
because the fire came up the sides and burned from the top down
Yeah.
inside. And yeah, that's where she hid. So
Yeah. Yeah. Our guy, we
Sorry,
took
was it
him.
a recent fire? This is news to me.
this was in 2020, September 8th, 2020
Okay,
was the Alameda fire. And
okay,
it
it's
burned
yeah.
over 2,600 homes,
And yours was one
including
of them.
ours. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for a little historical context there. Yeah.
Well, on that note, let's give some time for the two of you to meet and get to know each other a little bit. Carol, why don't you share how you found more to the story, what you're working on, and um, yeah, keep it to that, and then I'll have LaSalle share because then we can circle back to each of you on whatever's on your mind for the session today.
Okay, yeah, I actually found you through this more to the story, the workshop, the boot camp
Right,
through Women on Writing.
right.
And I've had several things published on Women on Writing, so I'm on their newsletter, so I saw it that way. And I've worked a lot with Chelsea Clammer, who just was published in Under the Gum Tree.
Hmm.
So that kind of got me excited. And so I joined. That's how I got here. And I'm working on memoir still. It's just an unending process. To the point of wanting to give up many times. But anyway, that's what I'm working on.
Yeah, you're not alone.
I know.
There are many women in this community space who have felt the same way and who are now published or getting published. And yeah, you found a good home, I think. So I hope you start to feel that very soon.
Yeah. Well, and also just as a note, I just read your Brooke Warner piece, and joined her Substack. So yeah,
she's a good resource. And in fact, 2 of our members are being published by She Writes Press this year.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, she's a great resource. In fact, here comes Barbara, and she's one of the ones who is having her book come out with She Writes Press.
Great.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi. I was like, oh, cool. One of the things I'm pretty sure which was on my to-do list was to RSVP to all those events, and I didn't do it. Not only did I not do it, like all our 2025 events, not only did I not do it, I also didn't even write it on the to-do list. There you go.
Oh, well.
That we
Yep.
Here I am. Hi.
Hi. Yeah. You guys, old school gals know the routine to RSVP, and that's what reveals the Zoom link. So Carol, I think you're familiar with that now too.
Yeah.
And Barbara, we were just doing brief intros because this is Carol's first group coaching office hour session with us.
Hi, Carol.
So yeah, you guys get to meet each other. Carol's working on a memoir, so I'm sure we'll hear more about that. And she came in through one of my master classes that I had promoted through the Women on Writing email blast. So I think we had some folks in the past come through them too. Marilyn, I think, had found out about us through Women on Writing. So Chelsea Clammer, Carol was mentioning, teaches with them frequently, and she was just published in the fall issue of Under the Gum Tree. So
cool.
all these little connections. Yeah. LaSalle.
Yeah.
Tell Carol a little bit about yourself.
So I'm LaSalle, and I'm in Virginia, and had power restored at 10:45 a.m. this morning after 78 hours or so. So that was a big relief. And we have another storm coming tomorrow, but deal with that. I found Jana through one of your free master classes introducing your boot camp. So I think that was 2019, and then started in 2020 or 2020 and started in 2021, whatever. Finished my manuscript in that program, and then spent the next year or some revising and getting more help to finalize it, and published that one in 2023, and then a workbook that was sort of an offshoot from the first one is a memoir, a workbook in last summer, and I'm working on my next workbook, which is in a series of 4, so I've got 2 more after that, and some other stories that are waiting for room to come out. That's me.
Yeah, thank you. Barbara.
Hi, Carol. I'm Barbara Caver. So I'm based in New York City. I guess I'll start with, I found Jana the same way LaSalle did. I think it was a free master class on Zoom that Jana was giving at the start of the pandemic. Convinced me to sign up for nonfiction boot camp. I finished my memoir in the first draft coming out of finishing it in the boot camp program in like early 2022, and it's being published later this year. So that's that. And I'm working on a novel and Substack and getting my calendar in order, apparently.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's it. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Great to have you all here. It's a good small group to start off the new year with. So the way these usually go, Carol, is pretty free form and open. I usually just say what's on your mind, and each person takes a turn. Sometimes one or two people don't really feel like they need to talk through anything, and just being here and listening is supportive enough. But as long if everybody wants time, I make sure that everybody has time and shares an update or a question or a challenge that they're working through. So we can just kind of open it up and let it be free flowing.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's on your mind for today, the start of the new year?
Well, what's on my mind is to finish this damn thing.
Yeah.
But finding the time to finish it, I've also got an art. My background is art, primarily painting and printmaking. And so I've figured out a way to do digital prints because I lost a ton of work during the fire a few years ago and decided I wanted to do something that didn't require inventory. So I'm doing digital work and then I don't have to worry about inventory. Anyway, I want to get this book finished because it just keeps interfering with other things that I want to do, or other things I want to do keep interfering with finishing this book. But anyway, I just, my little notebook opened to the page where, let's see if it comes into focus. Yeah, where you were showing me how to create the memoir using backstory.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing that and it turned my head completely. I mean, starting with the inciting incident made all the difference in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly I'm reading this thing and then it's a spiritual book as well. So I got really involved with TM and I read the book that you were reading and that was wonderful. And for some crazy reason, I was inspired to go on Amazon and look for a book. I didn't even know what, and I came across Daughters of Saturn. And I thought, oh, pardon my French, holy shit, this is what I've been looking for. This is an amazing book. It goes into the entire mythological reasons why we have the patriarchy, plus actual historical events that led up through history and why we are, and this is, I'm just so excited about this because this is the one area I've never researched, and it's the one thing about my book that isn't really talked about, and that's being raised in the 50s by a woman, a mother who not only bought into the whole patriarchy, but was a misogynist as well, and that's part of that, but a father who is absent and what that does to a daughter. And my whole book is really about the incidents. Well, anyway, I don't want to get into a lot of detail about it, but I'm just very, very excited. So now I'm trying to work in kind of a braided essay type, braided format, working in these little mythological things that I'm reading in this book. And I'm just all of a sudden back in the woods. And it's very frustrating. So I'm getting in backstory and snippets, but then I tend to overwrite and rewrite and like, oh no, I've got to say this, I've got to say this, and I've got a bazillion little darlings that I can't now get rid of. And so that's where I am.
Yeah.
So
how can I help?
I don't know if you can. I mean,
Okay.
Okay, well, I do have a question. I rather than paraphrasing what I'm reading, I'm also reading a book by Gerda Lerner, who wrote The Creation of Patriarchy. And it's brilliant. You know, these are all scholarly studies. They're not how-to books. So, and I'm wanting to work in these excerpts, but rather than paraphrasing anything, I'm actually giving them credit and just writing excerpts from their books, and I'm hoping that that's okay. And there's a lot in the beginning, but then it gets sparser as my story takes over. So I've got my story, I've got backstory of origins, and I've got these little snippets of these books that so it's reading better for me, but it's still, it's like, oh, I don't even know a question. I'm just in the woods.
Okay, let me just tell you kind of what's coming up for me.
Okay, good.
The first thing is I have another book recommendation.
Oh, good. Yeah.
If you can feel like you can handle it. It's called Hagitude, like a combination of the word hag and attitude. Hagitude, Hagitude, by Sharon Blackie. The subtitle is Reimagining the Second Half of Life. And the reason I think you will resonate with it is she's kind of doing a little bit of what you're describing with incorporating these mythological stories, but not just mythology, like women from fairy tales, and just like looking at different archetypes of what we call the hag or the older woman.
Okay. And tell me her name again.
Sharon Blackie.
Blacky or
Blackie.
Okay.
And using these stories to kind of examine and break down the patriarchy. Almost exactly what you're describing. The thing I like about the way she does it is she's not referencing other texts, because these are mythology stories, they're fairy tale stories. If you feel, Carol, that you want to familiarize yourself with these stories, maybe reading sources that tell the stories in completion, but then potentially work on writing your own version.
Okay.
So that it's more authentic to you and your voice, and to the personal experience of your story that you want those mythologies to illuminate. Right? So it's almost like internalize those stories for yourself. And then as you're working on your manuscript, I think you will intuitively know, oh, this mythology story is applicable for this part of my personal experience.
Right. Yeah.
And you can integrate it a little bit more smoothly, rather than feeling like you're constrained to using excerpts and citing sources. Because we're talking, like one of the Hagitude book talks about the old witch in the fairy tales, like Snow White. Right? And there's many variations of her.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Right? So every time a new person is telling the story of Snow White, they reinvent the evil witch or the stepmother. So you can do that. Like, these are stories that are meant to be adapted. Like, create your own version of whatever mythology or fairy tale that you want to incorporate.
Right. Yeah. One of the things too that I'm also in this book, Daughters of Saturn, she has a section called in the belly of the father. And I thought, damn, that's a good title. And I
Mhm.
think that might be what I'll change my book title to, because right now it
Mhm.
doesn't, having done all of this other stuff, the title of my book is not what it should be. So
I wouldn't worry about, think about it,
know
see
you don't.
see what comes up for you as you're working, but I wouldn't worry about it right now.
Okay.
And Barbara can attest to this. She had a title that she was using for her book on as she was working on it throughout the entire manuscript drafting process, and the publisher changed the title.
From what to what? Just curious. Can you say?
So yeah, definitely happy to say the title. I was working with. So it's a memoir about connecting with my Cuban heritage after a trip to Cuba several years ago, and so the working title was Destination Cubana, and the publisher changed it to, after a little bit of back and forth, the publisher changed it to A Little Piece of Cuba. And it has a subtitle, which everyone seems to be ignoring, which I'm okay with. The subtitle is A Journey to Becoming Cubana Americana. So,
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
But they're all just
So-
referring to it as A Little Piece of Cuba. So,
Yeah.
so am I.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, it's titles are just so easy for me in visual terms, but written, it's just, it's impossible. Right.
You know,
I will say that that first title, Destination Cubana, 99% sure I remember discovering it on this call, and it was a fairly quick conversation. Like, I was looking for something to call the book that, as I was starting to query, and it was, and so I think it was just, a conversation here, and I was coming up, like, kicking around a couple ideas, and then I was able to come up with that phrase later, but pretty quickly. Like, it was not belabored, so I wouldn't stress it. Like, the book will kind of tell you what it wants to be called, I
Yeah.
think.
My book has told me so many things.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
if it feels like it's something that's tripping you up, maybe just create a document where you can put ideas. And so you're capturing your ideas and they're in a safe place, and they're going to be safe. You're not losing them. So you can just kind of let them be in that safe place until you're ready for them, and you don't have to worry about it.
Yes. Backlog with stuff like that. No, I will. I thank you. That's all been great.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You'll have to let me know if you read Hagitude and if you like it.
Oh, I will. I'll probably, I guess I can get it downloaded.
Yeah, I listened to the audiobook.
Not downloaded. Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just ordered another book on I don't even remember. I think I've ordered about 10 or 15 books this last month. So anyway, yeah.
Good. All right.
Hey, thank you.
Someone else.
I can check in. I don't have a lot to check in on, just because I've been in survival mode with the storm, but I'm looking forward to the retreat on Saturday. And I'm hoping during that time to read through the descriptive and educational pieces of this next workbook. I've already pretty much finalized all the exercises, so those are taken care of, but the me blabbing stuff, and then send it off to my first reader beginning of the week.
Exciting.
So, yeah.
Yeah, very exciting.
Very ready.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning the retreat, which I will emphasize, Carol, for your purposes. We do have the retreats once a month. Actually, twice a month starting this year, because Barbara's going to be hosting a second one. So the first one is this Saturday with me hosting. And then Barbara, I don't remember when the next January date is.
Yeah, good. I am checking since, calendar issues. It's the last Saturday in January.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So
so-
same time, same place sort of thing? I mean, or do you have, okay, good.
And all of those, as I mentioned in the email exchange we had the other day, Carol, you can always find those under the events areas when you're logged in.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of finally figured it out.
Okay.
I think
Don't
I'm good.
hesitate to ask questions if you need to.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Barbara, what about you, my dear?
January 25th. That's my hosted mini retreat. But I will be at this weekend's mini retreat as well, as soon as I get my RSVPs in order. And yeah, what's going on with me? I just finished reviewing the proofread of my manuscript. Speaking of Cuba, and guess the shenanigans that I got up to was so I have been very on top of deadlines for my publisher, like freakishly ahead. They actually told me to slow down. So I took them up on it this time around, and they sent me the proof. They actually sent me the proofread to review like right before the holidays, like the 18th or 19th of December. And I feel like we had an office hours, and I was like, I just got my proofread. And they asked for a 2-week turnaround, but because that fell like December 30th, I was like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. And I was like, can I have until January the 6th? And my editorial manager wrote back, yeah, sure, no problem. Well, in my head, I had week of January 6th, and I clearly can't trust my head right now. So in terms of dates, and so on January so everything that I was doing, like a couple times during the break, I was like, let me open up the manuscript and start looking at the proofread. And I literally was like, I can't look at this manuscript anymore. Could not do it. And there was also this sort of like, this is the last time you get to this is it, this is locked, this is going to print, like da da da. They were very clear about the kinds of revisions they accept moving forward, and you basically have to prove that like someone is going to be physically harmed. There's like a legal issue if you don't change something, or that you've gotten a date so abominably wrong it can be easily disproved. Like it's very, very egregious things that they'll take moving forward. So I don't know if I thought I was like, take the manuscript and go kind of a thing, but I think I realized I actually think I do have a block with letting this thing go. So on January the 5th, and I was like, I got to get through this proofread on January the 6th. Like in one day, I got to look at the entire manuscript and write back to them and say, I'm good, you know? So a brilliant or foolhardy idea came to me. I read it out loud. Each chapter out loud, which did a couple things. Number one, it got me over the whole, like, I can't look at this manuscript anymore. It got me, and it was a fresh way of looking at it, fresh way of hearing it, really. So it was kind of nice giving it another life. I timed all the chapters for the audiobook, so now I know about how long, since I'm producing that myself. So now I know how long it's going to take to do all of the chapters. And all of the proofread, this is a great testament to Jana. All of my proofread notes have to do with almost all of them had to do with the Spanish words that I use, and the fact that because I don't have a Spanish keyboard, there's none of the accents are there. So the proofreader just put all those back in. There were two instances where there were a few instances of like missing words, which was like great. Definitely. So glad you picked up on that. And then there were a few instances of sentences that just had to be changed because the proofreader had made an adjustment that made it unclear. And I realized what the issue was, and I just totally rewrote it just to clarify it. So it was very minor, all things considered. But the reading through it chapter by chapter, I just finished doing that like at 2:30 before we got on this call. So, and I also have not heard a peep from the publisher. It's not like on January 7th, they were like, where's this manuscript? They haven't, I haven't heard from them at all. So I figure I'll just get back to her at some point tomorrow with the proofread. And I'm also convinced myself that there is really nothing I had to do, in terms of like, I really can let it go. There were a few things that I was like, is that true? I don't necessarily know, but so I'm going to throw in like as I remember, I threw in a few little qualifiers like that. There was a trip rather than, there was something I got nervous about and I was like, oh, I should text my dad. And then I'm like, no, I should not text my dad. I should either just change it or make it vague enough that, it's like this, this particular issue isn't, it's like, it's not going to haunt me, in other words.
Mhm.
And I also was sort of reminded of the fact that there will always be pieces of this manuscript that will haunt me. So it is time to let it go. So I feel like I'm in a very good place, but I do highly recommend. I was very happy I decided to read it out loud, that for a bunch of different reasons. So yeah,
Love
so
it.
that was exciting. And now I have to get, now I think, I also rearranged my schedule, which is probably why I'm having problems with calendars. But rather than doing my early morning isolated writing time, which is just draining my energy all of a sudden, probably because it's so dark. It's like my circadian rhythms don't want to work in front of a laptop at 5:30 in the morning, right, LaSalle? She's nodding, which is something I was always able to do, but for whatever reason this year it's not happening. So I've now blocked off all of my writing time for Friday and Saturday afternoons. So tomorrow I have some writing to do, and actually I'm not going to do any writing. I am in the process of printing out, very painfully, a copy of the novel's manuscript, because I haven't touched the novel in in about 6 or 7 weeks. So I'm going to print that out and take that with me tomorrow to my quiet writing space and just start reading through it again, just to familiarize myself. Where am I? What do I need to do with it? And then hopefully we'll see where I am. Saturday, I may still be reading through it, or I may be ready to start working on it again. So we'll see where that puts me on Saturday. But yeah, that's me.
All very exciting stuff.
You're like the only person who says that, Jana. I'm like, I feel like it is exciting. It's good to hear. I feel like it's absolute chaos, but I was very happy. And my husband, who's actually going to be recording and producing the audiobook for me, he was like, I don't want to hear it. Anytime I was reading, he would like go into the bedroom or go someplace else or put headphones on, because it's like, he was just like, I'm going to hear it. I'm going to spend a lot of time with it. I don't want to hear it right now.
He doesn't want to hear it until he has to.
Exactly. And he read a very, very early draft of the book too. Like, I think he probably read the first or second draft. And it's changed a lot. So I think he kind of wants to be surprised again,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, trust me. He's like, just this afternoon, he was like, I'm going to go hang out with the neighbors. He like went down the hall, and because I was like, I got 2 chapters to read before office hours. So he was like, I gotta go, bye. And he was out the door. So
Love
he's
it.
like, I'm gonna spend more time with this damn book than you did. And I'm like, oh, you will not. But so yeah,
Not a chance.
not a chance. I was like,
Barbara, will you record it in your apartment? Like, you have all the setup and the soundproofing and all that?
Oh yeah. We have the whole setup and everything. And we were just talking this morning about the a kind of when we might want to do it, but yeah, we'll do it all at home. And then both of us were just kind of like, well, it is supposed to snow this weekend. I'm like, I'm not reading it again. I need a break. We'll wait for another cold snap,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Because is your goal to have the audiobook ready to release at the same time as the print?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want them both. And I mean, that's not until December 2nd, but the issue is, winter, like being trapped in New York, in a New York City apartment in winter, this is the perfect time to do it. And now I know exactly how long the reads are. It's the most quiet now. We don't have the air conditioners going. We don't have,
you probably have less street noise.
Yep. A lot less street noise, or street noise that's at least predictable, So if like a siren goes by, I just pause for a second and then pick it right back up. It's not like the club on wheels that go by, like in the middle of the afternoon in the summer, Todd is also going through some medical stuff right now. He's doing very well, but he is almost immobilized. So I kind of have, he's kind of stuck to the apartment, and he's just like, yeah, give me an occupation or I shall run mad. So, so I was like, yeah, we'll record it. So I'm going to turn the proof in tomorrow. And then if, if they're going to just integrate, all the changes. And then if there's something I've introduced, they'll fix and then send it back to me, hopefully in a couple of weeks. So I'm thinking sometime in February, we're going to be hunkered down here, recording. So yeah, it'll be fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
It also gives him, like me getting it recorded, it also gives him the runway, like with us getting the recording out of the way, like then he can work on the post-production as much as he wants.
Right, right.
And kind of at his pace and everything.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that doesn't matter, he can do that. He could, not that I want him doing it at 2:00 in the morning, and not that his doctors want him doing it at 2:00 in the morning, but he could do it at 2:00 in the morning if he wanted to. So, yeah.
What kind of an app do you use? Recording app, or
we have a microphone set up, and he records directly into Pro Tools. He used to do audio and podcast recordings for a living. So we use the software Pro Tools, and then he's got a couple of different. The setup, his studio is right behind me, and it's got all kinds of gadgets and faders, and we have a fader board and everything like that. So it's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot of stuff. So
Cool.
it is better. It is better the idea to do it in my pajamas, than having to go into a studio and do it.
Yeah.
that would be nice. So
I know, doing it from the comfort of your own home, that's kind of a luxury.
Very much a luxury. So, and I'm like, this is probably, and as I was reading through it, I was like, it's a good opportunity for me to I'm going to have to put a script together. I'm so going to nerd out on this. It's like, I have to put together a script. I have to make read it. I haven't directed myself in so long that I'm like, oh God, that's also a chore. I'm going to be so done. I'm never going to want to do this again. So we'll enjoy this process and then never do it again.
But then you will do it again for your next book.
For the next nonfiction book. Not the novel. The novel gets a real actor for that. But the next nonfiction book, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
May I ask you, how many words is your memoir?
40,682. And that's only because I just closed the manuscript an hour ago. So
40,000. Okay. Yeah. So that's just a little less than half of what mine is. But
yeah, that's on the shorter side.
Mm-hmm.
Mine's like 72 or something. Final started out at about 120,000 words, and
same with me. First draft, it was all poor me and you bastard. But once that got over with, it started becoming more. Yeah. So now it's about 70,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When my there was definitely a moment of, oh my God, when my novel is 83,000 words right now, and I'm not quite done with it. So when I passed in the novel draft, that was sometime in September, sometime last summer, when I was working on the draft of the novel, and it hit 40,000 words. I was like, oh my God, my novel's as long as the memoir, so, and now it's twice as long. So it's definitely on the shorter side.
What's your novel about?
Oh, Carol, this is totally up your alley. My novel is about a witch in New Orleans who's rescuing a young woman from a abusive marriage, and it's got a lot of mythology. It's definitely mythological inspired. It also has its own mythology, which is why it's taking such a long time to write. It's like it has its own little historical matriarchal lineage to the witch family.
I grew up in New Orleans.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
My mom's family moved to New Orleans after they left Cuba. Eventually, there was a little bit of moving around. Where do you live now? Are you in California?
I'm in Southern Oregon.
Oh, okay, great.
Very near Ashland, which is the Shakespeare Festival thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And are
Yeah,
you,
we
you're
have-
in the city? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead.
You're in the city, right?
In New York, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, we've had quite the theme of witchy conversation, like in the
Yeah.
last 3 months or so. Which reminds me, Barbara, did you watch Agatha All Along?
No, and I know I owe you. I told so I'm blaming it on Todd. He said I can blame it on him because he's chained to the couch. Well, not really, but mostly chained to the couch. Every time we sit down to watch something together, he does not want to watch it. And I'm like, Aunt Jana gave me an assignment and I haven't done my assignment for Jana yet. And he was like, when I am mobile again, you can have the television 24/7.
Okay.
But right now.
So you can just rebuttal him with, Jeremy loved it.
I did. I think you told me that last time, and I was like, Jeremy liked it. So
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what his deal is. Like, no excuses.
anytime I open up Disney Plus, I get one of these. He's like, "Are
We're
you
talking-
gonna put on?"
Carol, Agatha All Along is a Disney Marvel show. It's in the Marvel universe.
And of course, when we were visiting, when I would, for the holidays, when we managed to get the travel clearance, and we were able to go to South Carolina to visit my brother and his family, where I have my two nephews. Todd even said, it's like, oh, your aunt really wants to watch this show on Disney Plus. And the minute we queued up Agatha All Along, both my nephews, my teenage boy nephews were like, no, it's a girl's show, and wandered off. And I was
They
like,
wouldn't even give it a try.
no, they wouldn't even give it a try. And I was like, guys, it's Marvel, especially my older nephew. He's a Marvel junkie. And so I was like, you fucking patriarchal men.
Okay. Oh, here's another argument.
I love it.
Because there is a 100% tie-in to the Marvel universe with Wanda Maximoff.
Okay. I'm going to mention that to my older nephew and see what he says.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, I can't say more without giving spoilers.
Mhm.
And the way they do it just got the fans all giddy. I don't pay attention to that stuff, but Jeremy does. Like, the fans were all like giddy when it was being released live. So you can dangle that little carrot and see if that does anything.
My older nephew who just turned 15, I knew there's a Marvel tie-in. I was totally expecting him to still watch it with me.
Mhm.
I think it's because he's at war. He and my younger nephew, they're at war right now. My younger nephew's 12. So I think because the younger nephew was there, my older nephew was like, I'm not doing it. It's like he didn't want to create like anything, any blackmail opportunities for the future. So I think that's part of it. It's like if the younger nephew hadn't been there, Sam had been off doing something else, but yeah, I am noting all of these arguments for all of these stupid men, Jana.
Okay.
I have no
Please.
idea what the Marvel universe is all about. I used to love to watch Bewitched.
Agatha All Along is right up there.
Yeah.
It's a show about a witch. And the Marvel
Back in the
universe
day.
is the Avengers,
Mhm.
Captain America and Iron Man, Black Widow.
Black Widow.
Those are the big ones. Hawkeye, Captain Marvel. Those are the biggies. Wanda
my God.
Maximoff, though, is one of the Avengers. And she has an energy power. She just like controls energy, basically. And then you come to find out that it's not just a superpower. She's a witch.
Mhm.
And so Agatha All Along is a spinoff of the show with Wanda Maximoff. So Wanda Maximoff has her own show after all the Marvel Avenger movies. And now Agatha All Along is a spinoff of that with the villain from the original show. So anyway, too much geeking out for you guys. I apologize. I don't
But one of
normally
these
get like
days-
this about shows. Especially like superhero shows. I'm into it because Jeremy's into it and it's something fun that we can get into together. And I do appreciate the overall storytelling and the true mastery of managing all of those storylines. Because if you look at the Marvel universe and the way those movies were produced and released and connected, all from the individual, Iron Man, Captain America, they all have their own individual movies, but then they tie into the Avenger movies where they're all together. I do appreciate that from a creative and planning and storytelling perspective. But otherwise, I don't usually geek out on it this much because it is like nerdy boy culture kind of. But Wanda Maximoff, my cat is named after. My cat Wanda is named after Wanda Maximoff, and Agatha all along being witches and just that whole kind of like supernatural world started getting very I don't know, I was just like really intrigued and like, oh, this is a really interesting thing for comic book movies to do with their storylines, to go into the witchy supernatural realm where they don't usually go there. Anyway, enough of that.
Well, Barbara,
That's a whole side office hours about
that is a whole side office hours.
The universe that I come from is the X-Men, and we can talk about Phoenix and how that ties into like how the witches with the witches and the superheroes, cross into the human rights argument with the X-Men. It'll be very we can go. Anyway.
Well, okay, Barbara.
I know. LaSalle's like, bye.
You and Jeremy would like totally go like because he used to work in DVD distribution, if you remember.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
So he has always paid attention to like all the studio rights of the different universes.
Yeah.
And how like Fox had the rights to the X-Men for so long, and Universal or whoever had the rights to all of Marvel, and never the twain shall meet, except the newest Deadpool movie. I don't know if you watched that. They finally sort of like used that movie as the linchpin to bring it all back around. So now he's like, oh, what are they going to do now that they can like reintroduce X-Men and so.
Well, I'm curious about, Barbara, your book is kind of about witches, right?
Definitely about witches. Yeah.
Does it take into account any voodoo?
Oh yeah. Well, so the original title, speaking of original titles, I've changed the title of this book 8 times, by the way.
Yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me.
The original title was called The Voodoo Saint, because the whole concept was this family of witches has always used their powers for good. But then I decided that was way too much research to do and that voodoo is so, complicated and has a lot, like there's a real tradition there that I was not, first of all, not interested in. Definitely didn't want to, like co-opt or do anything with. Or cause any harm to, because there's plenty of harm already caused to it. But I also I'm just like, I don't want to do any research. I just want to make up what I want to make up. So now they're just witches, and defining how they use their magic, is something that I've been, that I did a lot of work on. But now the voodoo part of it is something that the witches use sort of as a front. It's like one of the witches in the book is a fortune teller in Jackson Square, and the main character, one of the main characters, is a witch who runs a music club on Frenchman Street, and the name of the club is the Voodoo Saint now. So I've kept it in there mainly just because they're like they sort of they don't call themselves witches. They just talk about the magic, and it's other people in the book who call them witches, and and so It's actually based on a woman that my grandmother, I swear to God, is friends with a witch who lives in New Orleans. And I'm like, this woman shows up to like all these family events and my cousin's wedding. And she's just like, out of nowhere, she's just like, oh, how are you? How are you doing? Wow, your aura is super crazy. Like you got a really pink aura. Is everything okay? It's like she'll say things like that. So I'm trying to use her. I've been using her as kind of a model for things. It's like, fine, you want to call us a witch? You call me a witch, call me, say I use voodoo, fine. We'll use voodoo just because it attracts the right audience, that kind of a thing. So yeah. But
very, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of all this witchy stuff, Carol, I don't know if you noticed that I shared those 2 books that my husband gave me for Christmas, but this one of these might actually resonate with you too. The Intuition book.
Intuition?
It's intuition, like it's a invented word to mean intuition. Intuition.
Oh, okay, wait.
But this conversation reminded me, and circling back full circle here to kind of where we started, because she writes a lot about how villainizing women as witches became a way to not only control them and oppress them, but also separate the entire human race spirituality connection to nature. So it's just completely bifurcated. Yeah. Thank you. With like organized religion now and having all of these rules and rituals for accessing God and the divine, whereas prior to all of that, it was very primal and nature oriented, like connecting to the earth and nature was very spiritual, and the way to access the divine, and separating those two and villainizing women as witches was a way to basically ostracize that version of spirituality.
Well, and we used to have, there were goddess cultures way back, 75,000 BCE, 75 to 50,000 BC. And then, agriculture kind of kept marriages equal, men and women fairly equal, but it was, when land became the thing to acquire, that's when the men, that's probably the beginning of patriarchy, is during that hunter-gatherer period where men were taking over other lands, conquering other cities and towns and so forth, and gathering land. Yeah, I mean, but prior to that, there was a goddess culture.
Yeah.
And so I imagine a lot of everything comes out of that.
Right.
So.
Carol, have you read Dance of the Dissident Daughter by Sue Monk Kidd? This is like literary hour. It's like, this is like assignments. Like everybody read lots of books,
Dance of the Dissident Daughter?
Yeah, it's by Sue Monk Kidd, and she also has a lot of, all of her fiction is very pro feminist spirituality and centers on the divine feminine. And so Dance of the Dissident Daughter is her memoir about how she was raised. She's from South Carolina, just like me, and she was raised in a very traditional Southern Baptist household, and then married into, the Southern Baptist world, and how she journeyed away from that, and discovered her divine, and now characterizes herself as a, can't remember the phrase she uses, but it's like a devotee of the divine feminine. So,
yeah. And I mean, there's just, this is exciting. Okay. So I have 3 books here now I have to order and read within the next, little bit. Yeah, it's just amazing, how much the whole feminist movement has um, brought light into this whole phenomenon.
Yeah.
That, when women didn't have anything to compare freedom to,
Right.
because for forever we've not really known that, whereas men had something to compare freedom to with slave owners and so forth. So, I mean, yeah, it's frightening, but it's also just really fascinating to me that for some reason that became a real blank space a big hole in my education. And it's only through my own personal experiences that finally I discovered it. So it's cool. Yeah.
My brother's reaction to my memoir, because I let him and my sister-in-law read it recently. They asked, so I was like, sure, you guys can read it. They both loved it, which was really exciting. But my brother's response, because we were visiting his family over Christmas, and we were talking about a lot of stuff that's not in the book, because obviously there's lots of stuff that's not in the book that he experienced with me and things like that. He loved the depiction of the family, and he was there for a lot of the stuff that I talk about, memories and things like that. And he mentioned one of the things that was hard for me that I had to really kind of get through in the process of writing the memoir was talking about my grandfather, my Cuban grandfather, who I still call by his first name, Carlos. I stopped calling him, even though in the book I refer to him as abuelito, the Spanish for granddaddy, and that's what we always called him. I don't call him that because I lost all my respect for him a very long time ago because how he treated me and my mother. And my mother is one of six. My mother is the oldest of seven, and there are six girls and one boy, and my uncle, who I'm very close to, my one uncle has been very vocal about the fact that he knows more than even though he's the youngest, in the family. It's like he's the youngest and all the girls are basically like useless. So one of the things I had to do in the course of writing the memoir was not use, it was not like villainize my grandfather, was really kind of create a story there. And I remember I think I told you this, Jana, I was so mad at one chapter when he showed up so much. I'm like, the fuck are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. This is my story. And I want to talk about, I want to talk about the women. This is my mother's side of the family. And the person who did the most for me with connecting me to Cuba was my grandmother, who I'm named after and everything like that. And so when my grandfather showed up, I'm like, why are you here? And I felt like I had to do a lot to get to a point where and now I'm like, I see him as a tragic hero. My brother's response, it's like someone who could never, he couldn't get past his patriarchal conditioning to see what an amazing thing he had done by saving his family from an oppressive regime, And even if he felt that way, he never expressed that to us. It was like, it was just not in his vocabulary, and it was not something he could let himself do. So that's kind of where I left it. My brother's response to that was, well, I'm sorry you didn't meet the man that I knew. Do you know how much he loved chocolate ice cream? And I was like, cool, okay. And that makes up for the fact that he called me an idiot to my face when I was 8 years old. Okay, yeah, like I was like,
and it just speaks to how you as a woman and he as a man have very different experiences of this man in your lives, right?
Exactly. And like we didn't get into it, but it's like, so my brother launches into this mansplaining of like, he was really a good person, and I was just like, great. He's like, I'm sorry you didn't get to experience that. And I'm like, yeah, me too. That's kind of what I say in the book. Like, but that's not your fault, and whatever you say isn't gonna change what I wrote. I've come to terms with the man he was. It's all in the book through the writing of the book. And I'm like, I had the, and I was able to tell my brother after, I just sort of like, la la la, yes, you talk, after we got through that moment, it was just sort of like, well, I feel that I've made, I know that had I never written this book, I never would have come to this conclusion. I would have just about my grandfather. I never would have revised my relationship with him. I would have just marinated in vitriol and anger for the rest of my life, just like him, So So I got it out of my system through writing a book. You go eat your chocolate ice cream and remember abuelito finally. You know?
Yeah, it's amazing how writing a memoir really reveals stuff and brings you to a place of being able to witness it rather than be a part of it. So, whoops.
Oh,
We lost her. Yeah, she waved. So,
okay. I
Yeah.
missed it. Well,
I
it's
guess
time to
'cause
wrap up.
Yeah. Mhm.
It is.
Oh, this has
yeah.
been so much fun for me. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Yeah,
great.
this is pretty much what you can expect on a monthly basis. We just kind of, like I said, free flow, and what comes up, and whatever we're each meant to receive, we receive, and then there's the online space for connecting in between, and the monthly retreat. So hopefully we'll see you again on Saturday.
Hopefully I'll have the time and space and
Yeah,
because I need to spend some time just writing.
yeah. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what we do on Saturday. So
Yeah.
I create the space and the structure, and all you have to do is write, and I tell you when to start and when to stop, and we do about 2 hours. And yeah, it's a great little monthly commitment to yourself and your writing practice.
Cool.
So
Very good.
So happy to
Okay,
see you
well,
both today. Thanks for
yeah.
being here.
This was great.
And we'll
Yeah.
do it again soon.
That sounds good.
Cool.
All right. Have a
Thank
great
you.
rest of your day. Bye.
See you.
you.